Darktide. I originally became interested in Darktide when I heard about it. As a fan of the Warhammer universe and the previous game Vermintide, I figured that I couldn't go wrong with picking up another Fat Shark title. Darktide is a third-person action game set in the Warhammer 40k universe. Warhammer is a role-playing game set 38,000 years in the future. Humanity is ruled by a godlike being known as the Emperor of Mankind, who requires thousands of daily sacrifices just to stay alive. In Darktide, you're playing as a prisoner who is fighting as a member of the Inquisition to try and clear their name and regain the trust of the Empire after an incident that you were involved in. When you start making your character, you start by choosing from one of 4 different classes. You have the Sharpshooter, the Preacher, the Skullbreaker, and the Psyker. After choosing your class, you dive directly into the personality section, where most of the choices are voice acted. The choices that you make here are going to change your character's dialogue and tone, while adding some new options for when you're adjusting the look of your character later on. Next, you're presented with the physical character customization, which is where you customize the looks of your character, as well as the height, the age, and more. I really felt a connection to my character after I was done making him. Though it took a long time to go through, I felt like it was worth doing, and it was really helpful in immersing me in the game. Once you finish the tutorial, you find yourself in the central hub. This is where you begin new missions for the Empire. There are 5 levels of difficulty that you can choose from to suit your skill and equipment. If there is space, you will end up joining a mission that is already in progress by replacing a bot. The higher the level of difficulty, the more rewarding the prize will be when you finish. Team play is really important here. If you don't stick together and work as a team, don't expect a good result, especially on the more difficult missions. I really enjoyed the back and forth dialogue between the characters during the missions. For example, if you're doing really good, or if you're not, the characters will hop in and shout a few lines back and forth, just to let you know. The gameplay is fun, the hits feel impactful, and you have a number of options to engage at close or long range. Darktide gives you a good amount of challenge as you progress to the end game and beyond. There is voice chat in the game, but it's not used very often. Though the maps are well made, there aren't a lot of them, which makes the game start to feel a bit samey or repetitive, especially when you only have a handful of bosses that keep showing back up. There is also a cash shop in the game, but it only sells cosmetics and you have to seek it out, which means it's not going to interrupt your gameplay. Leveling in Darktide may be a bit different than what you're used to, but it actually makes more sense. Bear with me on this one. You get more powerful by increasing your trust with the Inquisition as you complete missions. As their trust in you goes up, you gain access to more options for weapons, cosmetic equipment, and you get to access more areas of the hub. You'll also be introduced to more of the story with cutscenes as you hit different trust levels. As of writing this review, there are still systems in the game that have placeholders and aren't yet finished. This means that parts of the base game are still being developed. Through the time that I've been playing the game, I've seen some of the systems get completed and become available. So I have confidence that this will become a thing, but it's not yet done. The equipment that you get can increase your life, your toughness, and the number of wounds that you can sustain before getting knocked down. You can also upgrade your abilities using feats, which you gain every 5 levels, all the way up to the maximum level 30. I created this section on health and damage because it was a bit confusing for me when I started. The damage system in Darktide is broken apart into 4 different aspects. You have toughness, which is basically a shield, health, corruption, and wounds. Now, toughness and health are going to work about how you would expect them to, though corruption and wounds are a little bit different. Corruption and wounds work together. Wounds is going to measure the amount of times that you can be wounded before you can't be brought back and are captured. If you look at your health bar, you're going to notice that it's broken apart into different segments. This is called wounds, and each different section is called a wound. As you get knocked down or lose all of your health, your bar will start to fill with corruption that can't be removed without a health station. Each time you're knocked down, you are wounded 1 time. If your wounds fill up with corruption, you are then captured and will be in need of rescue by your teammates. I want to take a moment to talk about the audio and video components of the game. I really think that Fat Shark did a fantastic job of combining both the audio and video components here to make a complete experience. Whether it's customizing your character's outfit or the sound and feel of a mob charging you from across the map, you really get immersed into the game with this. The way that they combine the sound in with the visuals is fantastic. You can really feel the terror in the hound charging you from across the map as you hear the howl and the footsteps as it gets closer, coming to tackle you. As someone who has my own preference for how I set up my keyboard in games, I like to review the controls and configurations. I was happy to find that I could rebind all of the keys that I needed to in order to play the game the way that I wanted. If you're somebody that needs to rebind your keys for physical reasons or just like to play the game your own way, they make a lot of accommodations here. Though this game is polished in a lot of areas, I still encountered quite a few issues while playing. I want to start off by talking about the crashing. When I started playing Darktide, I found that I would crash on almost every single mission as soon as it began. I ended up making some changes and was able to pretty much eliminate it. However, I shouldn't have had to do anything and it should have worked right out of the box. I created a video on how I resolved the issue in case you're having the same problem. Clipping was also a pretty big issue. There's been a number of times that I've gotten stuck in the terrain, including one where as soon as I joined a match, I was shot completely across the map like a bullet. From there, it just declared me dead, and that was that. Lag is a significant problem in this game as well. I've seen myself and others rubber band around and have issues when I'm trying to attack or switch weapons where the game won't let me do that. Loading takes a long time in this game as well. It's a newer thing that I think they added at the beginning to try and combat the next issue where characters aren't fully loading in. When you first enter an area, you're likely to see a few graphical issues. Characters will be running around without their bits attached. You'll see a floating head or torso, or just some arms moving around while the game tries to load in all of the assets.
Am I still loading? I get the feeling I'm still loading.
Now we're down to the pros and cons. Starting with the pros. Immersion. The story you create around your character, the back and forth chatter between the characters and the missions, that all keeps the game going, and it's something that I really appreciate. It just adds the whole experience for me. Gameplay in here is fun and non-stop. You really feel the impact of your weapons, and when you're getting hit from behind. Character creation is great. There's a lot of options, it's very dynamic, and I love it. It's something that I haven't seen in a really long time and really helped me immerse myself in the character. The leveling system is very unique, and it makes a lot of sense to me. It's something that kind of hit home and I felt sort of natural with once I got used to it. And this game wouldn't be the same without the high level of detail in both the audio and video quality that was put into it. Bugs. Though it's a well-polished game in some areas, I still encountered quite a few bugs. The biggest problem with them was that most of the bugs were kind of game-breaking bugs. They were situations where, when you join a map, you'd get kicked out of the game, or where you'd glitch through the map and instantly die, or where you'd be trying to fight back against a mob of people coming at you, and you weren't able to use your weapons or switch to a melee weapon. These are things that really don't leave a good taste in your mouth. And the last one is that it's not done. There are pieces of the game that are still not implemented. You can see them by just going up to certain stations. In fact, at one point when I started, those stations were completely inoperable. And over time, over the last few weeks, they've slowly been putting them together.
Saw a red light.
Now we're down to the final rating.
Ooh, worried that was a
This one was a bit of a challenge for me because there were parts of the game that I really enjoyed, and then there were a lot of bugs that caused me a lot of issues. Even with all of that, though, it was an action-packed game that was a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Warhammer 40k. However, if you do decide to play the game, I would highly recommend that you take a look at some of the fixes that you can put in place so that way you don't run into the same issues that I had at the beginning of the game. If you liked this video and would like to see more, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to purge the heretics.